Have you ever wondered about being a franchisee and maybe you're unsure of exactly what you should do to prepare yourself for the search for franchises? Today we're going to talk about 4 things that all prospective franchisees should do. So I've been spending a lot of time in this series talking about being a franchisor. This time I wanted to flip it to the other side of the table and talk about being a franchisee. So if you are looking at some franchise opportunities, you're out there trying to decide what's right for you, I just kind of want to go over some things you should be thinking about as you go through that process. Number 1, deep dive into the FDD. So you need to get the franchise disclosure document from whatever franchisor you are considering and look at the FDD completely. Make sure that you understand, you may not understand all of it and it may be a long document, but I would look at every single section and get your head around what that will mean for you as a franchisee. Some of the big hitters are the fees, the recurring fees that you're going to have, the estimated opening cost that you're going to have. Item 19 is a huge one. That's the franchisor financial performance representation. How much money are you going to make, right? So dig deep into the FDD. Understand also that if your franchisor tells you anything about how much money you'll make as a franchisee that is not also contained within item 19, that's a violation of law, and depending on what state you're in, it may be a criminal violation of law. So keep that in mind. Number 2, if you are a prospective franchisee, once you have that FDD in your hand and you've looked through it, you need to go to item 20 in the FDD and look at all of the former franchisee contact information and find a couple of former franchisees and existing franchisees. So go ahead and reach out to some franchisees and they'll tell you, they'll be honest with you. So that is a great move, and you have the information to reach them in the FDD itself. Number 3, you need to have good vibes with your franchisor the entire time. So one quick story to share on this. There have been times when I was in the DPO world that we were talking to people in the franchise sales process who had money, they had business experience, but for whatever reason, and I'm thinking of somebody in particular right now that was out west and it wasn't a registration state, but in talking to them, they were just combative, I guess. I don't know. It seemed like it wasn't a good culture fit, so we just told them no, and we turned down the checks because we just didn't think it made sense, right? So you need to do that as a franchisee. If you're having calls with a franchisor and they're talking to you in a tone you don't like, or if you think they're just unprofessional and they don't have it together, don't go with them, right? It's like getting married for a 10-year block, depending on what your term is. So make sure that I would be very picky, and if something doesn't feel right, that's usually a pretty good sign to walk away. Another thing is, if something doesn't feel right and you can pinpoint it, call some franchisees, like we said in point 2. Number 4, you need to understand your pro forma. So you need to know what the business model is and what business model do you need to replicate to be able to be profitable like other franchisees and the franchisor has been with this model. And then, is that doable in your market given the market circumstances? Okay, so blah, 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 right? A bunch of talk. What do I mean? Here's a great example, minimum wage. If you have a franchisor who's exclusively located in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, then they're probably going to have pretty good labor cost rates because minimum wage is very low there. The question is, if you need to have a 30% loaded labor cost to make the model work, and you're trying to do the model in New York City where the minimum wage is 15 and the market rate is 20, who even knows, it may not be doable. It may not be possible to do. So just make sure that the business model the franchisor has laid out and all the assumptions that are in that business model are assumptions that also ring true in the market that you're going to be pursuing. And finally, just a bonus thing that franchisees should think about: know your long-term strategy. So this is it's really a personal long-term planning move here. So why are you getting into franchising? You know what I mean? You need to know why you're doing it from the outset. What's the goal? Most people, well, actually, I'm not going to say most people because it varies wildly. So for some people, the goal is just to buy a job, right? They want to work for themselves. They don't want to work for anyone else, and they just want to make enough money to support themselves. And if they can make more than they're making right now, that's great. But they intend to. This is their job. They're going to be working in the thing 40 hours a week. Okay, so that's one group of people. Another group of people, it's like the first group, but they're maybe just a little bit more ambitious, we'll say. And maybe they want to run 2 or 3, but they're still going to be involved, but they're just going to try to delegate so that they can run a few locations, right? And then the final one is, not the final one, but another sort of prototype I see all the time is people who want to create empires, right? They want to own as much as they can own, and their end goal is to have passive income and not ever have to work after putting in years of intense hard work and risk and all that kind of stuff. So everybody wants to be in group number 3. Most people end up in group number 1. And you just need to understand going into it, what's your goal? What do you want, right? And you may want to share that with a franchisor as well, because it's just good to always be on the same page about what your long-term goals are with a franchisor, just to make sure they're consistent. So those are the considerations that I would emphasize for franchisees to look at who are thinking about franchising. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out to me at matt@crumptonlegal.com, and we'll talk to you soon.